Your company is making money off you right now. Not the salary they pay you, but the profit. One engineer I know makes $125,000 a year. That's his salary. But his company profits $118,750, to be precise, money off of him, just having him there. That's after they pay him, they get that profit. Now, most people have no idea what that number is for them. You're about to find out how to calculate your number and why this changes everything. So let's go and get down to it. Last week, I walked you through the contribution audit with Marcus as the example. So you'll find this on the podcast. You'll find this on the YouTube from last time. The link to how we got here is last time. We're going to actually put numbers to it because here's what nobody actually talks about. It's the dollar value, not what Marcus earned, what his contribution cost for the company to replace him. That's the number that changes the conversation. Today, we're putting numbers on Marcus's audit. And we're going to walk through 6 different contributions, the 6 that we did last time. The first thing Marcus did was a payment processing script. Marcus automated the process that was taking operations 3 to 4 hours a day. Now, if you go back, you listen to how we got to that, but today we're just going to dive into getting the numbers. He got that 3 to 4 hours a day down to 30 minutes. That's a 2.5 to 3.5 hours per person per day that he freed up. Now, an operations analyst costs a company about $50,000 to $60,000 a year. That's fully loaded. That's roughly $30 an hour. Marcus saved 3 hours. That's $90. 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, right? We're doing the math. That's $2,500 a year in ongoing labor cost reduction. But wait, he didn't just save that much money for a full year. He wrote the script. Let's say it took him about 8 hours of work to do that. The company invested $300 of Marcus's time to build something that saves $22,000 something a year. That script keeps working next year and the year after that. This is the part that most people miss. Marcus's contribution wasn't worth what he made that week. It's worth the $22,500 every single year recurring. And nobody asked Marcus to do this. He just saw a problem and he fixed it. That's the first one. So now let's go on to the second one. The second one Marcus did was the database optimization. Now, in here we had one core database query that was running slow. For the tech geeks out here, it was 800 milliseconds instead of 80 milliseconds. He got it down to 80, a 10 times improvement. It was running 10 times slower than it should be. Marcus found the missing index in the database and fixed it in a couple of hours. Now, in fintech world, which is where Marcus lives, speed is conversion. A 10 times faster database doesn't just feel better, it measurably reduces the churn. Studies show that about every 100 milliseconds of latency cost an e-commerce business about 1% of their sales. For whatever studies are worth, but let's use it, right? At fintech scale, that compounds. Let's say the app processes about $500,000 a month in transactions. 1% is $5,000. Marcus's optimization? Even conservative estimates put the impact at $3,000 to $5,000 a month in reduced churn and failed transactions. That's $48,000 to $60,000 a year from fixing one query in a few hours. Now, Marcus probably didn't think about this in dollars. He just thought, this is slow, I'll fix it. But the company thought about it in dollars because That's how they calculate profit, even though they didn't tell him, right? That was his second thing. Now the third thing, the compliance bug catch. If you remember, Marcus caught a subtle compliance logging bug during a code review. It could have cost the company thousands of dollars in fines if regulators hadn't found it. This is fintech, right? All kind of regulation. He escalated it before deployment. Now, a crisis was averted. No one knows how close they were. This one's a little harder to put a number on. And many of them that you will do will be a little hard too, but let's just try. Let's try financial services compliance fines. What are they? They're measured in tens of thousands to millions depending on the infraction. So it's steep. That's just the fine. You also have legal fees, remediation, where potential customer churn. Let's say that the realistic damage, if this got caught by regulators, would have been $75,000 to $150,000 in fines alone, plus another $50,000 in legal and remediation. So Marcus's 15-minute code review prevented somewhere between $125,000 and $200,000 in potential losses. Pretty significant, right? You can't put that on a resume as $150,000 in impact, maybe. That's not how it works, but you know the number. I don't know if you could put it in a resume. I might have to argue back with myself on this. But anyway, the company knows the number. That changes how you show up in a negotiation. That's the key that we're trying to deal with here. Let's move on and get through these. The fourth thing is the junior engineering onboarding. The company hired a junior backend engineer in March without Marcus's mentoring and code reviews and pair programming documentation. That junior would have taken 3 to 4 months to be genuinely productive. That's what a senior engineer should be doing, right? With Marcus's help, he got him to 6 to 8 weeks. That's about a month of productivity gained. A junior backend engineer costs the company about $80,000 a year. That's roughly $40 an hour. A month of full productivity, about 160 hours of work. So Marcus accelerated the junior's contribution by about $6,400 in immediate productivity. But there's more. The company also didn't have to pay someone else to onboard the junior engineer. That would have been 50 hours of a senior engineering time. Now, at $65 an hour, that's another $2,600 in labor that they didn't spend. Marcus's mentoring saved the company about $9,000 in onboarding costs, plus generated about $6,400 in faster productivity. That's roughly $15,000 total. And he did it because it felt like the right thing to do. Now, okay, this is just a lot of math here, right? And this is the point. Last time we did what I called the contribution audit. Sometimes I call it the word formula. This time we're diving into putting numbers to it. So we got 2 more. So hang with me. We're almost there. And then let's pull it all together and see what we got, because this is what your 30-minute assignment last time would have gotten to you. The fifth thing that Marcus did was an incident response where services were down, is really what it was. Customers can't process transactions. Marcus was on call. He diagnoses the problem in 10 minutes, coordinates a fix. He gets the service back up in about 45 minutes instead of what would have been 2 to 3 hours typically. Every minute of downtime in fintech costs money directly. Lost transactions, angry customers, churn. Let's say the platform processes about 100,000 per hour in transaction volume. That's roughly $1,700 per minute. So if the outage lasted 2 to 3 hours instead of 45 minutes, that's 75 minutes potential loss. Here we are just doing the math again, right? At $1,700 or or $1,700 per minute. That's $127,500. Marcus cut the recovery time in half. That's roughly $63,000 in transaction losses prevented. Marcus doesn't list this as $63,000 impact on his resume. But again, I'm going to challenge maybe my own thinking on that. Maybe he could, but that's not where we are now. But when he walks into compensation negotiation, he knows what happened. He prevented a six-figure problem. Okay? Let's do the last one. Number 6, the documentation improvement. In the documentation improvement, deployment documentation was a mess. Marcus cleaned it up. I mean, that's really what's happened here. He created one source of truth. He reduced deployment questions by about 80%. It saved him from maybe 10 to 15. How do I deploy interruptions this year? You know those kind of interruptions. Hey, you got a minute? How do I do this? Right? That's the kind of thing he was measuring. Every interruption cost. So let's say that every 15 interruptions would have been 30 minutes each, an hour and a half of a senior engineering time per interruption. That's 22.5 hours a year, and that's at $65 per hour. About $1,500 prevented context switching, right? Going back and forth between what he was doing, and reclaimed his productivity. Don't skip the small stuff here in your audit. It's not flashy, but it compounds. And it shows you think about impact at every level. That's what this contributions audit is all about. I mean, in this case, that's 6 contributions. He may have had more. He may have had less, but those are the ones we're going to focus on. This is what we do here on the Company of One podcast. We help technical professionals see the actual business value they're creating, not the feelings version. It's the dollar version, dollars and cents. That's how we measure productivity in a company. Let me add this up for you. Marcus's contributions in dollar terms. Let's pull this all together. First, payment processing, $22,500 a year. Second is database optimization, $48,000 to $60,000 per year. Third, the compliance catch, $125,000 to $200,000 prevented. Fourth, training the junior engineer, onboarding, the $15,000. Fifth, incident response of $63,000 prevented. Sixth, the documentation, $1,500 a year reclaimed time. The total direct impact is $275,000 to $362,000 in his last year at the company. Now here's where it gets interesting. So these are all the numbers. Let's use the conservative number, the $275,000, and pull this together, right? Last time I asked you to do the homework, to do the number formula, here I'm showing you putting numbers to it. First of all, we're going to talk about Marcus's revenue. His cost to the company, his salary plus benefits, $125,000 times 1.25. That's how I calculate his benefits. It may be more, it may be less, but it's $156,250 per year to the company. That's what Marcus cost the company. His profit, the value he brings, minus what he cost. All right, so all that value we added minus what it cost is $118,750. Marcus brings, by showing up doing his job, $118,750 of profit to the company. Let that sit for just a second. Marcus makes $125,000 per year, but the company profits $118,750 just from having him there. That's after paying him, not including his salary. That's profit. He's not expensive. He's a business unit. Most people go into compensation talks with feelings like, I work hard, I deserve more. Maybe they go in even whining. That's not negotiation, that's hoping. Then they compare themselves to the market rate, one of the worst mistakes you can make. And you get a 3% raise because they're following the script everybody else follows, right? They were probably going to get a 3% raise anyways. Marcus has a different conversation. He says, here, look, here's what I delivered. Here's what it costs to replace. Here's what I want to take. Here's where I want to take my career. It's not feelings, that's data. You don't need to feel entitled to more money. You just need to see the actual impact that you're having. Once you see it, the conversation changes. The company sees it differently. You see it differently. Your next contribution audit isn't about asking for something. It's about knowing something. And once you know, everything shifts. Everything shifts. This is a game changer. I just gotta tell you, this sounds like work. It is work. You need to try it. Because now here's the thing. You've got numbers. Marcus has his $118,750 of profit. The company doesn't know it yet because you haven't told them, right, what yours is. Marcus may not have told them yet either, but you can't expect them to see it. You need to show them. Now, this is not bragging. This is just facts. And as a manager, as a supervisor, as a business leader, this is the facts I want to see. I want you to say, here's what I delivered. Here's what it cost to replace. Here's what it generated. And then ask, what parts of this had the most impact? Notice that question. Even though Marcus calculated all this, he's not assuming his calculations are perfect. He's not assuming this stuff is even important. Because the company will tell you. They will know where it mattered most. And when I say company, I mean it's Bob or Bill or Sally or Sue. It's an individual. It's not the company speaking. It's the individual. And that's what you have to worry about. Once you identify which contributions have actually moved the needle, you start asking, hey, can I do more of this? I mean, you're asking to yourself, right? For Marcus, the database optimization and the payment processing script were two of his biggest wins. Together, they were like $70,000 to $80,000 a year in impact. The next logical question is, what other queries are slow? What other manual processes are eating hours? That becomes your focus, not random stuff. That stuff actually generates value. This is the critical part. You're not just reflecting on a year anymore. You're building a systems. If you schedule 30 minutes every week, look at your list of contributions, look at what's coming, ask, what simple steps can I take? Or what simple steps can I integrate to add value? One at a time. You don't need to reinvent everything. You just need one small improvement per week, right? A script, a process, a document, a conversation that prevents a problem. Small things compound. And one thing a week is 52 things a year. And when you measure them, most of them have a dollar value, and that's what counts. Here's the real number to chase. In case you're jumping to Marcus needs to go ask for a raise, here's the real number. You want to get to your myProfit. I call this myProfit. When you calculate this for yourself, that $118,000 of his is what we would call his myProfit. You want to get myProfit to 4 times your salary. Marcus makes $125,000. That means his profit target is $500,000. He's at $118,750 right now. His gap to ask for a raise is $380,000. Now notice that's not impossible because now he is aware. That's just 1 or 2 more projects like a database optimization, catching 2 or 3 more compliance issues before they blow up, and they're probably everywhere. He now is aware of what adds value, assuming his boss agrees with this, right? But if he didn't, he's now aware of what his boss really cares about. But that's doing more of what works. Once myProfit hits 4 times your salary, that's when the conversation becomes more like, hey, I'm not being paid enough. Now, maybe it's 4 times, maybe it's 5 times, maybe it's 2 times. Either way, there's a multiple, right? Because you're no longer asking for a raise now. You're asking the company to adjust their math. You've already proven the number. Now, you don't negotiate a salary based on feelings or market rates. That's already built in. The market rates are already what HR has done. You negotiate based upon what you're actually worth. That's what we're calculating. And the only way to know is to measure it. So do your audit, put your numbers on it, even rough numbers. Share it with your manager of your company and see what lands. Then next week, we can talk about how do you defend that number or what actually happens in the negotiation. Maybe we'll do that next week. Maybe not. We'll see what you have to say. But let me just real quickly talk about where can you find these numbers. AI. Just put in what you've done into AI. Don't put in the company secrets or anything like this. And just see if you can't do some calculations. The data about what it costs for these kind of errors, they're pretty well documented. And so some of the data that I was bringing in is, we just looked it up, right? That's what we're talking about. So that's the framework. You now know how to see the actual value that you're bringing. Most people never do this. That's why they negotiate from weakness. If this made sense, if you're ready to stop guessing at your worth, subscribe for the next episode. We're going to go deeper on this kind of stuff, probably, like I said. If not, but we're going to go deeper into serving you. It's the conversation here that changes everything. There's a new episode coming next week. There's a new episode coming every week. What we're here to do at the Company of One is to help you grow and help you make more money. See you next week.